Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Flophouse. This week, it's another Flophouse mini. That's right. On a normal episode, we cover a bad movie. We talk about it. Maybe sometimes we like it. Maybe sometimes the movie's not that bad. We love to have our preconceived notions challenged so we can grow as people. But that's not what we're going to be doing this week. Instead, we're going to be doing something silly, because that's what we do on Flophouse minis is silly stuff.
Just doing a goofy one?
Just doing a goof.
Yeah, one for us.
Yep, this is one for us and also for anyone else who likes nonsense. My name, of course, is Elliott Kalin, and I am in the pilot's seat for this one. My co-pilots, as always when I'm in the pilot seats, are my best buds, whose names are...
Dan McCoy.
And I'm sitting on Dan McCoy's lap. My name is Stuart Wellington.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's only two seats in the cockpit
seats.
of this episode. I
It's
apologize.
amazing that we can both get picked up by the mic so well when you're blocking me. With
Well,
your...
Mike is very strong. He can hold up both of you at the
That's the
same
thing.
time. Yeah. Hey,
He's a
guys.
human chair. It's a new franchise that Pixar is working on called Chairs,
Mike
where it's
the
human chairs.
Oh, I thought it was going to be, it was the new Marvel movie, Human Chair. They're like, Captain America's like, the only way to defeat Red Skull is if I had a place to sit.
Mhm.
I like the idea that Pixar is doing a movie about human chairs. Like, it's done so many movies about inanimate
Well, that was the
objects
thing.
that are...
They were gonna make toys, human toys, but the animation just wasn't there yet.
That's true.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And they were going to make human cars, but again, animation wasn't there yet. They were going to have fully photorealistic faces on
Human
that shit.
cars.
Yeah.
The
And of
mind
course,
boggles.
we all remember when they announced Human Monsters University, and then that again also got changed. Guys,
Yeah.
we're talking about those are all movies we're talking about because we love movies. I'm a lover of movies too. But there's another thing I love in addition to movies, and it starts with the same letter. And that thing is meat. Yes,
Okay.
meat. I love chowing down on the dead flesh of what was once a living animal. I just like it. I'm sorry. I know it's not good morally. I know it's not good for the earth. I know it's not good for my health, but I just like it. I love the texture. I love the
Okay.
taste. I love the action. I love thinking of, whose life am I ingesting right now and what memories of
Sure, yeah,
being
yeah.
a
You're
chicken
glad you
or a
thought of
pig or a cow will
The
I
most
take into me.
alienating way to introduce this idea.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so the thing is, being a lover of movies and being a lover of meat, I am particularly attuned to those times when those things go together, when they collide, when
Cool.
meat is in the movies. And so meat in the movies
Meat's on
is
the
something...
menu.
Yep, meat's... Oh, Dan, you're getting... Yeah, exactly
Oh,
that.
I'm getting
He's
ahead of
in the-
myself.
he's in the-
Sorry.
Yep,
He's
to
in the
quote,
spirit.
It's something we'll be exploring on today's episode of The Chop House, the only podcast devoted to meat on film. That's right, to quote Ook Look of the Uruk-hai, looks like meat is back on the menu, boys. Cue
Oh,
that
yeah.
theme song. Click, 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 click. Meat on film. Da 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 da. Meat on film. Da 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 da. Meat on film. Dee 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 dee. Meat on film. Do 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 do.
We got
Thank
Thank
you.
Simon LeBon over
That's
here.
a sound alike. That's a sound alike, so we don't have to...
It's a sound not quite alike.
Yeah.
So welcome to this episode of The Chop House. Today we are looking at the Legends of Cinemeat. My picks for the top 10 best moments of meat on film. The top 10 best times we saw meat in the movies. Now, I know what you guys are going to say. Technically, it's true. People are also meat. We are made of meat. I have ruled out living human meat for this list because it would have unfairly dominated the selection process. There's just too many good moments of movies that are about people. Where people appear on screen. People
Name
are...
one.
Oh, now that I'm on the spot, I'm having trouble with it.
yeah.
I guess when Julia Roberts says "big mistake"
Okay.
in Pretty
You got
Woman.
me.
Yeah.
Good one.
Man.
Yeah.
Speaking of meat, the two of them, man, smoking hot. That's like
Talk about a
that's-
meat cute.
That's like peak human appearance. I don't know.
No cuter meat than someone soliciting.
A hot, generous daddy, and
So this
Anyway.
is none of the preceding opinions are expressed as the viewpoint of Chop House. Those are all
Okay.
Stuart's personal opinions.
Thanks for distancing yourself.
So we're not going to talk about human living meat. I've also made the decision not to include scenes where people are being served as meat or where we know that meat is people. So that means, unfortunately, we're going to ignoring a ton of movies out there, a ton of great movies, Sweeney Todd, Delicatessen, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Motel Hell, Soylent Green, Titus, a lot of movies where people get eaten by other
Alive.
people. Yeah, a lot. We're not going to talk about those ones right now. So but we're going to talk about meat as meat. Meat as a meal, meat that gets eaten
Sure,
or
yep.
maybe doesn't get eaten because of something that happens to it. Do you guys, before we get into the top 10, do you have any thoughts? Are there any ones that you hope show up there, or do you not want to mention any because you're afraid of spoiling my list? Because meat does spoil if you leave it out long enough.
I mean, there's so many great food movies out there, but honestly, I'm drawing kind of a blank on the great meat moments. So I'm curious to see what.
You can't beat the meat. Let's see.
Dan's having trouble beating the meat.
First time that's ever been said.
I mean, what like Big Night is in there. What are some other good meaty movies?
Well, let's take a look. Rather than
Hamburger the Motion Picture.
Meeting
no, there's
Raoul?
not Hamburger.
Oh, wait,
the Motion
again,
Picture.
we're not.
No, Eating Raoul is again human meat. We're not doing
Meet
that one.
the Fockers.
No, that's a homonym. That's a different word that sounds the same but means something different and is
That's
spelled
what a
different.
fucking homonym is. Jesus, the fucking crosswords are killing me, guys.
You got mixed up with hominid, which is like an early ancestor of a person, but it's not quite a human being. Yeah. So, guys, let's get into it, shall we? I'm gonna share a little presentation with you called Top 10 Meats in the Movies, and if maybe we'll put these visuals up later online for the viewer.
How about we
listeners.
don't even describe them? We just put them in. This is just for us.
I was astounded by there was some production value. Elliott, took over the screen, did a screen share. Suddenly there's a PowerPoint in front of us.
And what does it say, Dan?
I'm excited. It says Top 10 Meats in the Movies.
You're right, and we're going to do exactly that. So
with no flourish, just normal font.
Yes, because this is classic
for us.
and dignified. Yeah. So let's go to the first segment, which is called Honorable Meat Chins. Honorable Meat Chins.
Elliott,
These are
I wanted to
things
say
that
this
didn't quite
earlier.
make it onto the list. Yes, Dan.
This just wasn't space, but now I have to. I admire that your devotion to the pun is so strong that it doesn't have to be a good pun that sounds like the thing.
No,
You just like it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I just like sticking words inside of other words, smashing them together. Language is a toy in my hands. It's something I like to play with.
Sure.
I'm like a modern day
You're like a
Shakespeare
god.
that way. Yeah, exactly. So honorable meat chins. This is where we're talking about some great, let's say, questionably meat things that appeared in the movies, but I felt like didn't make it on the list. Number one, of course, live octopus in Old Boy from 2003.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
He
one.
just walks into that restaurant. He just slurps up a whole live octopus. Unfortunately, that is seafood. It doesn't really count, to the hardcore gourmands as meat. So it can't make it onto the list, but it's a great
Different
moment
protein.
of someone eating a living animal, which is, you don't see a lot in movies. It's horrifying. It's maybe the most terrifying thing in the whole movie, and there's a lot in there. Now, moving on, the next one, Dan, I know you were probably going to mention this one, is the plesiosaur steak from The Land That Time Forgot from 1974.
You know me so well, I guess.
They shoot a
You're just
plesiosaur.
texting
And
me about that.
they shoot a plesiosaur, and the next scene is it being served as a steak to the assembled explorers. Again, it's a marine reptile. I couldn't figure out if it was seafood or not.
Now,
So,
Elliott, when you watch this, are you so curious what that tastes like? You
Dan,
as a
you have put
dino
your-
and meat fan.
This is why I wanted it on the list so badly. I've always wondered what dinosaurs taste like. I've always wanted to know. They're related to chickens, but their meat seems to be more like red meat. So are they more like beef? Or are they more like chicken? Are they more like pork? We will never know. That's a question we will never know the answer to. Mammoth meat, we know what that's like because it's been frozen. They've eaten some of it. It tasted terrible, apparently. But dinosaurs, we'll never know what they tasted like. And
I'm
that really
imagining-
bothers
Is it all
me.
like freezer burned and shit?
It was freezer burned. It was frozen for thousands of years, yeah.
It has to be lean and gamey is a large part of the answer, I would
I
assume.
kind of like gamey.
I
don't
like
know.
gamey too. I don't think gamey's not an insult to me. It gives you there's some funk in your meat. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart's all about games, so yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so we'll never know, but that's another honorable mention. Finally, the final honorable mention is
I
we
thought
go
it was
to.
honorable meat-chins, Elliott.
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. The final honorable mention, thank you, are the suspended sausages from Freddy Got Fingered in 2001. This is undeniably meat. They are sausages, and it's a lot of meat, so I had to include it. But I left it off the main list because I find it so unpleasant. I find it so incredibly unpleasant to watch and think about. So
Of all the things that Freddy Got Fingered, like to me, this is the most purely funny. not a I thought you were going to be mad that all that meat was not getting eaten. That
it
it was
shouldn't be
used
wasted, which I
as
don't
sort
appreciate.
of an art project to annoy Rip Torn.
I have no problem with killing an animal and eating it, but killing it to waste the meat, I don't like that. But yeah, I find the scene very unpleasant for a number of reasons. But I had to have it in there. It's a iconic meat moment in
Yeah,
cinema.
you had to, yeah.
But it's not one of the top
Gun
10.
to your head. Conan was standing behind your back, ready to slice off your head if you didn't include it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, guys, we're done with the honorable mentions. Let's get to the main courses. This 10-course meat meal. Let's get to the meat with number 10. You guessed it, The Meat Monster from John Dies at the End from 2001. Cool. This is a movie that I saw in the theaters, and I don't remember what happens in it except for this meat monster. So clearly it made a huge impression on me. It's a kind of poltergeist, I guess, like a figure made out, like a human figure made out of meat, raw meat, and it's just a great use of meat on film. You don't see this a lot, where the meat gets to be the bad guy or the monster in something.
Now,
guys, what do you think?
Stuart, you and I saw this together, right?
we saw this as part of a double feature. It was with this and the original Phantasm, because this was directed by Don Cascarelli, and he was there and did a little Q&A.
I was at that same screening with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at that too.
That's what I couldn't remember whether, I know Stuart lodged in my mind because he's such a Don Cascarelli freak.
I'm a real
but I couldn't remember whether you were
the PH.
also there, because I thought probably because you're still in town. I don't remember anything about it either, honestly. I read the book, John Dies at the End.
Yeah.
I saw this movie. I don't recall it.
But you remember that meat monster, right?
I think I read the sequel as well.
This book is full of spiders?
Yes.
Yeah, I did too, and I also don't recall. I mean, I enjoyed them. This is not a slam against those books. It's more a statement
Dan
about
smokes a lot of weed, everybody.
Well, there's that, but also I just never had a good memory.
Well, I think it seems like you don't have a good memory because you've forgotten that we've got 9 more of these to go through. So let's keep moving, shall we? Instead of just going down
Dan's
that rabbit
basically
hole.
just setting himself up to get caught in like a three-card Monte hustle every time he goes out in the street.
Harsh taskmaster.
Number 9. This is another one I think you guys are going to remember, and you're going to know. That's right. It's maybe the most meat I can think of seeing on screen at once. The Truck Full of Pork from Road Games from 1981. Now, I'll admit the meat here is glorified set dressing. It doesn't do much, but it gets a lot of screen time. Or should I say scream time? Because it's a scary movie.
You should say that, yeah.
Yeah.
I just realized what number 1's going to be already.
I mean, I'm sure you know what number 1 is.
I think I did too now. Yeah,
don't say it, but I know you can guess it. If the fans don't guess it, then I'm disappointed in them. But guys, what do you think about the Road Games meat? Again, you don't see a lot. It doesn't do a lot, but it's in a lot of scenes. You know, they're constantly checking the meat.
Yeah, and it's a symbol for the the fate of poor people getting murdered.
I don't want to, I guess this is a spoiler, but it's not much of a plot spoiler. Doesn't the end showdown happen amongst the meat? That's what I recall, at least.
I don't remember if it's maybe. I don't remember it well enough. I'm having a real John Dies at the End moment here where I don't remember too much else about it.
Yeah, I don't remember much about the meat. I do remember that this was, I think, the first Richard Franklin movie that I saw knowing that it was a Richard Franklin movie. I saw, Cloak and Dagger a lot as a kid, but with my eye out for I think I'd just seen the Ozploitation documentary, and this one, this is a lot of fun. If you're ever what if Rear Window was on the highway
in Australia?
was in trucks,
yeah. This is a good one.
So Road Games, we recommend it. I don't think you guys are going to recommend the next movie, but maybe you will. It's probably a favorite of yours. I don't know. It's one of the earliest meat movies that I could find, but I had to include it. This is strange that this one is less unsettling to me than the sausages in Freddy Got Fingered, because this is the wall of sausages in the movie Dog Factory. Now, this is from 1904. This is a short in which these men have a patent dog transformator, and there's sausages on the walls that are labeled with different types of dogs. And throughout the movie, you see people taking dogs, putting them in the machine on one end, and sausages come out. And then later, they put sausages in the machine and live dogs come out. So it is a machine that can turn dogs into sausages and vice versa. It's from 1904. This was Edwin S. Porter, I believe, one of the earliest film directors to really have his name attached to movies in the United States. And guys, tell me about your memories of Dog Factory.
I actually do think I've seen this. I find the idea very alarming.
Why?
I mean, it's alarming enough that obviously turning dogs into sausages suggests that you are going to eat those dogs, and
here they seem to be positing that it's just a good way to store them.
It's good at transformation. But someone might eat them by accident. Who knows?
How often do you accidentally eat sausages?
I mean, I'm not saying that the actual
I
consumption
slipped, it fell in my mouth.
It's an accident.
Squirted mustard all over it.
Surprising number of videos like that.
Some delicious sausage. I will eat this sausage without knowing that they are consuming man's best friend. Yeah. That alone is disturbing. But also the idea that one would transform sausages back into a dog. I'm just wondering about the mental state of the person
so
who was
here's
like,
here's the thing. Dan, this is one of several early silent comedy shorts where dogs are turned into sausages. I think this might be the only one where sausages are turned back into dogs. So this is the least because at least here it's not a one-way ride, But it's
this is very. I feel like Yorgos cribbed from this for Poor Things.
Now, guys, so let's move past that. It's a little unsettling, a little unpleasant. I think sometimes cinema is out to shock or to force us to question our assumptions about things. So I think that's okay. But not all movies have to be kind of like beautiful bedtime stories that lull you into complacency. But let's go to one that I think maybe fits that bill a little bit more for you. Number 7, The Rat from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, that Betty Davis serves to Joan Crawford as a form of psychological torture. We can see it's a dead rat lying on top, not cooked and not even shaved or butchered, lying on top of a bed of lettuce and tomatoes and on a beautiful platter on a silver tray. And Joan Crawford is not enjoying it all.
Elliott, I don't even see any lettuce there. What I see is like just a bed
sliced
of
beefsteak
tomatoes, which to me, like,
I think there's a little bit of lettuce beyond the tomatoes. Maybe I can see it a little better because it's on my screen. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just more tomatoes.
But like, I mean,
wishful thinking.
Obviously the rat is what makes this the most disturbing, but I find it immeasurably more distressing that it is just on like just sliced tomatoes, like nothing else, just like a platter of sliced tomatoes. That's gross to me. I don't know.
It reminds. I was just in kind of recently. I was in Barcelona, and we went on this winery tour, and there was a promised snack as part of the tour. So all of the Americans on the tour like sit down at this table, and they basically just give us bread and like tomatoes, and they're like, a local snack is to cut a tomato in half and just rub it on the bread with olive oil.
Tomat.
Exactly, and which is great. But there's just something very funny about the idea of like. Yeah, you just rub the tomato on the bread. It's a little. The thing is, it's good.
I mean, it's great. Well, I mean, especially if you rub some garlic on there beforehand. But like, it is weird to be like, and now you do the tomato rubbing. Sorry, Elliott, I interrupted you.
No, to promise that as a snack seems. I mean, but would it bother you
more? But all the tourists were
less,
like, "Ooh, I feel so exotic."
would it bother them more or less if instead of rubbing a tomato on bread, they were rubbing the tomato on a rat?
Or a rat on the tomato.
Or a rat on the tomato. Or a rat on the bread.
Dan was saying his problem was more of the tomato. If there were slices of bread with this rat, Dan'd be like, yum, yum.
You'd chow it down.
Very amplified by the idea that she just sliced up a tomato and then put a rat on top.
Just that she had any sort of garnish or setting for the rat at all, I think is putting more work into it than she needed to.
I think that's what it is.
Now, some will say that this is a bad choice, that rat isn't meat. The way the planet is going, rat is going to be meat. Sorry, everybody. It's going to happen. So, hey, oops. Do you hear that? Do you hear that cowbell or other meat-related sound?
Yeah.
I sure do.
Sounds like it's time for a little mini segment focusing specifically on B movies. You guessed it, movies where beef makes an appearance. The B for Beef movie. This segment, of course, is brought to you by... They're brought to you by America's cattle ranchers, who remind you, and I quote, this is what they told me to read for the podcast. They told me to say, eating beef is the only thing between us and total socialist demolition of our beloved freedoms. So that's a message from America's cattle ranchers. The first one, you maybe had an idea what it might be. It's beef. It's probably going to be steak of some kind. Let's take a look. Yes, that's right. It is the overcooked steak from Raging Bull from 1980. Robert De Niro's character, Jake LaMotta's wife, is cooking steak for him, and he is harassing her over how much she's overcooking it. They argue with each other, and she picks it up on a fork, walks it out of the kitchen, and slams it down on the plate, leading him to overturn the table. Now, here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons I chose this.
That's where the name of the movie comes from, right? Because the overcooked steak is like a Raging Bull.
Exactly. People talk a lot about De Niro's amazing physical transformation in this movie. What gets overlooked is the similarly amazing physical transformation of the steak to look so overcooked. That steak was in the makeup chair for hours to get that kind of unhealthy char on it.
All the
steak,
prosthetics,
It doesn't get a lot of screen time, but it really does look overcooked. That's just the lengths that steak went to. The title Raging Bull does refer to it refers to the cow, the bull that the steak was made from, and how mad it is that it's also overcooked, and it takes over Jake LaMotta's body in that scene, and that's why he overturns the table. Yeah, exactly. He's possessed by a evil steak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute, guys. this B-movie segment. We've never seen this before. This is new. We've never seen this in the Chop House. There are two movies listed at number 5. At number 5, there are two movies,
wow.
two different steak movies. It's a T-bone tie. Holy moly, guys.
Let's check the rule book.
Like I said, we've never seen it before.
There's nothing in here that says you can't have a tie for number 5.
Okay,
You're right. We didn't think of that rule. We'll pass a rule later. There's a tie for number 5, a T-bone tie. Alex, play that T-bone tie sound, please. T-bone tie. First up, of course, we've got, that's right, it's the floor beef steak from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962. There's a steak that gets knocked on the floor. Lee Marvin and John Wayne argue over who's going to pick it up, and they're going to shoot each other over it. And then Jimmy Stewart gets in and starts yelling at him. He'll pick it up, and he picks it up off the plate. He picks it up off the floor, and he slaps it onto the plate, and it starts to fall off again, and he has to slap it on a second time. And it is a big steak. This is an Old West-style steak. No wonder it made it to number 5. It's a tense moment in a great movie that revolves around a steak. Guys, how familiar are you with this scene?
I saw The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance once, a long time ago. Loved it, been meaning to revisit, but do not remember the steak scene, I gotta say.
Wow. Okay, well, Stuart, are you familiar with it? You knew the scene?
I've never seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I find Westerns to be too scary.
I understand.
You're afraid that a fight over steak could end in bloodshed.
Yeah, especially this one. There's a lot of yelling, a lot of loud noises. The noise of the steak slapping against the plate, very loud. But trust me,
and Jimmy Stewart coming in being like, "No, you're gonna eat the steak now."
Kind of. I mean, that is kind of what happens. Yeah, it sounds just like him. Especially because John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart are both older than they should be for the roles that they're playing. So there's a little bit of old man Jimmy Stewart in it. Okay, that steak is big. Let me tell you, it's got nothing on our other number 5. The other half of this T-bone tie is an even bigger steak. You probably guessed it. That's right. It's the old 96er from The Great Outdoors, the enormous 96-ounce steak that John Candy, he'll get it for free if he eats it all in one sitting. That's from 1988. We get to see it both raw in the meat locker, hanging up there, and cooked on the plate, and it is enormous. This is a huge steak. It's 96 ounces. Now, do you think they're weighing the bone? They must be, right?
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
That's how restaurants trick you.
Yeah. Do you guys think either of you would be able to chow down and just slurp up that old 96er and win the competition?
Perhaps as a younger, less wise man, but certainly not today. That's causing me physical pain to look at.
Not today. Oh, I got to call them up and tell them not to deliver that steak today.
I want to say, in contrast, in direct contrast.
Yeah, now that Joey Chestnut's out of the game, Dan, you could take his spot as the Coney Island king.
I am so disturbed by the idea of food eating contests. I am not a fan. I find it both a symbol of pointless gluttony and grotesque, a perversion of man's relationship to food. But that's another story. I just wanted to say that in contrast to The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which I saw in its entirety once, I'm not sure I've ever seen The Great Outdoors in its entirety, but I've seen bits and pieces of it several times.
Sure, just the nude scenes.
Nude scenes in The Great Outdoors?
No. I mean, the steak isn't wearing anything. But,
look at that.
And Stuart, I'm sure you've seen The Great Outdoors at some point, right?
Yeah.
In your
This
childhood.
and Funny Farm were like constant rotation for me.
Yeah, those were ones that were played a lot in our house also.
Hey, wait, Great Outdoors, was that the sheep testicles or is that...
no, that's
Funny
Funny
Farm.
Farm. That's Funny Farm.
Man.
Yeah. So that's...
a 4-star review from Roger Ebert, by the way, for Funny Farm. Anyway,
I was just
he's an
listening to-
unusual man.
I was just listening to a podcast with Quentin Tarantino where he's going on and on about how much he loves Funny Farm. What a great movie he thinks it is. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I don't know. But we're not talking about Funny Farm. Those sheep's testicles, maybe they could have made it onto this list if it had 11 slots on it. Unfortunately, it didn't quite have what the Truck Full of Meat, the Meat Monster, and Dog Factory have. So, guys, rounding out our B movies, that's beef movies segment, there's only one classic moment of cinema. It could possibly be one kind of towering beef performance. It's so memorable, so iconic, so charismatic, and it has to be the rock and roll hamburger from Better Off Dead from 1985. Technically
really
claymation. It's not real meat on film, but you know what's going on. You know it's representing meat. And movies are about symbology and representation. Stu, you're covering your eyes, I assume, because it's too beautiful to
It's
be able to
just
see.
that, like there's a moment in your life when you realize that things are made possible through the magic of cinema. And this is one of those moments for me.
A hamburger singing about how everybody wants to.
Playing a classic fucking Eddie V taped up guitar. It's so sick.
Yeah.
I love this moment so much, and I think we've talked about it before, but we have to talk about it again. I love it so much because it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that is happening in that movie.
No,
the movie
it's
just
never
says
mentioned
An
again.
We're gonna
otherwise
take a-
very tightly plotted movie.
I mean, but like usually the gags have at least some association to the main plot, but here it's just like, hey, let's check in on John Cusack at his fast food job. He is going to scream at the heavens for some reason, and then a claymation hamburger is going to sing a song.
This is such a weird movie because I feel like a lot of people grew up with Better Off Dead, either seeing it on home video or watching it all the time on TV. I didn't see this until I was like an adult, and
Really?
it was one of those things where I'm watching. I feel like we all had movies like that where like you're watching and you're like, I feel like this movie's always been a part of me. Like every moment of this movie makes sense to me on some level.
Yeah, this is one that I didn't see it until I was in college, and so I didn't see it as a kid at all. But I had seen so Savage Steve Holland, the director of this.
You
I had
see
seen
One
his,
Crazy Summer when you were
No,
a kid?
I still haven't seen One Crazy Summer. Still
Oh,
haven't gotten
man.
it. Yeah, I don't know what made that summer so crazy. There were zombies and stuff. I don't know, but
I think it's time to watch it. You got a family movie night coming up, right?
that's
Why
what
don't
I
you
should
pop
do.
some corn and watch One Crazy Summer?
But I
Yeah.
I was familiar with Steve Holland's work on the show Eek the Cat. That I did watch
Okay.
that show when it was on Fox, Saturday mornings. So to me, he's the Eek the Cat guy who also happened to make some movies before. But this rock and roll hamburger, that's going to round out our B movies segment, and that means it's time to take a short break. You're going to hear some sponsor spots, and then we're going to come back for the top 3 meet in the movies moments. That's all coming to you on the Chop House. Chop chop, it's the Chop House.
I'm Jesse Thorne.
I just don't want to leave a mess.
This week on Bullseye, Dan Aykroyd talks to me about the Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, and his very detailed plans about how he'll spend his afterlife.
I think I'm going to roam in a few places, yes. I'm going to manifest and roam.
All that and more on the next Bullseye from MaximumFun.org and NPR.
Hello, teachers and faculty. This is Janet Varney. I'm here to remind you that listening to my podcast, The JV Club with Janet Varney, is part of the curriculum for the school year. Learning about the teenage years of such guests as Allison Brie, Vicki Peterson, John Hodgman, and so many more is a valuable and enriching experience. One you have no choice but to embrace because, yes, listening is mandatory. The JV Club with Janet Varney is available every Thursday on Maximum Fun or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember, no running in the halls.
Hey there, it's Dan. There's not really a ton to promote this week, so I'm going to keep it super brief. If you missed the premiere of 3 Men in a Halley, our stage pilot show that featured one Ms. Hallie Hagland, you can still watch it until the 18th, midnight on the 18th. I believe that's midnight Eastern time. But why risk it? If you're interested, tickets are still available. You can go to stagepilot.com/baby. Also, coming up very soon, we are going to announce our new season of Flop TV. And, we're going to announce it on August the 14th. Why? Because that is the Flop House's birthday. I think it's our 17th this year. Maybe 18th. Oh, I'll have to look into it. We've been doing this for a long time. But if you're interested, look out for that on our various socials. Instagram's a good place to find it. Also, you can find it in our newsletter. All of the information about stuff we're doing is in our newsletter. If you go to flophousepodcast.com, there's a field right on the front page where you can sign up for a newsletter. And speaking of newsletters, I started my own. It's called Dan McCoy's Special Interests. You can find it by going to danmccoyinterests.com. Maybe it would make more sense if it was danmccoysinterests.com, but I didn't like the fact that you can't put an apostrophe in the URL, and so my own weird hangups made it danmccoyinterests.com. So if you're interested in that, check that out as well. Elliott continues to write Disney's Hercules comics. Stuart continues to be a bartender, go to Minnie's and Hinterlands in Brooklyn and watches TikTok videos. Okay, that's it. Bye.
And we're back to the Chop House, the #1 podcast about meat in the movies that is all actually one episode of a different podcast. I'm your host, Elliott Kalin. I'm joined again by the other two members of the Three Amigos.
Dan McCoy.
Stuart Wellington.
That's right, Stuart Beef Wellington.
Stuart Wellington. Beef
Yeah.
stew, Beef Wellington.
Yep, beef stew, beef Wellington.
Double beef.
And of course, Dan Frying Pan McCoy. And let's move on to number 3.
This is a thing you cook meat in.
Yeah, it certainly is, Dan. It certainly is. So going to number 3, I think I might get some blowback from you guys on this because I said at the top, we're not going to do any movies where people are served as meat. And this one is questionable. I may be skirting one of my rules, but I had to include it. That's right. That evil meat that we just see for a few seconds in Texas Chainsaw Massacre when she thinks she's escaped, she's at the barbecue, she looks over and just sees it looks like meat hanging in hell, the way it's lit all red and there's smoke and everything. It is so scary. It is in a very scary movie. It is one of the scariest moments to me because it is it could be people meat. It might not be. You'll never know.
It is 9,000% people meat.
You never know. You'll never know. And it's also, from this point on, you never know if any of the meat you're eating in real life is people meat or not. It just makes meat look so scary. It's an indelible moment of meat on film, even though it's a very short one.
You know, just because it's set up, it's teed up so beautifully, I want to throw a plug to our friend who we went to college with, Jim Strayer's podcast, This May Hurt a Bit, where I just recently guested on talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, which is the fourth, the one with Renee Zellweger and McConaughey.
One of my most hated movies of all time.
Yeah, I didn't hate it as much as that, but if you want to hear me talk about it, I'm over there. But
I just find it to be so irritating.
It's very unpleasant, particularly in the middle where they're all just yelling at each other for a while.
And I mean, I feel like that's an element of all Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, but there's nothing else about it.
There's every Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie has a certain amount of irritation. Like the first movie, as amazing as the movie is, when you're spending time with those kids in that van, like you want them all to get murdered. They're so annoying. They're so irritating.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, then when they get murdered, you feel bad about it, and you're like, I don't want this. But there's and in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, there's so much that's purposefully unpleasant about it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's very funny. But this one is just a scary moment of meat. You know, it's the scariest meat moment, or is it? Because guys, let's move on to number 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I don't mean what meat becomes when your body is done with it. I mean the second most iconic, greatest meat moment in the movies. Let's go to the first appearance of solo poultry on the list. We had poultry as part of the meat monster in John Dies the End, I believe. But otherwise, we've been seeing a lot of pork, a lot of beef, a little bit of dog, and one rat. We haven't seen any chicken yet, right?
Wild coming from you, Elliott.
Well, I want
Mr. Chicken.
I love to eat
You're
chicken.
the titular Mr. Chicken and the ghost and Mr. Chicken, I assume.
And it's the ghost from
it's the lion from Flophouse member who has the Popeyes app on his phone.
That's true. It's the lion from the Ghost in the Darkness and me. I'm Mr. Chicken. So that's what that movie is about. And we're both trying to eat each other because we're on a deserted island. And when we look at each other, we see it turn into meat. Now, I wanted to put on, but it's not a movie. I wanted to put on the dancing chickens from the Sledgehammer video. I felt like it didn't fit the rules, but this one certainly did, and it's a little similar.
It better not be like Baba Yaga's house or some shit.
No, Stuart, we're not playing games here. We are playing road games back at number 9. We're not playing games here. This is real stuff. This is the real deal. It is. That's right. That little chicken from Eraserhead that he's got to cut up.
Yeah.
So Eraserhead himself, he's at dinner at his girlfriend's parents' house. The dad asks him to carve the chicken. He says, "Oh, you just carve it like a regular chicken." It is tiny. And as soon as he sticks a knife into it, it starts bleeding and kind of dancing its legs up and down to the point that Eraserhead's girlfriend's mom goes into a sort of ecstatic nightmare seizure trance and has to run out of the room. Very upsetting scene, very scary, but also pretty funny. And look, that's what's so great about chicken. Chicken can be scary and it can be funny. Light meat and dark meat in one bird. Chicken does it all. And so this is the best moment of chicken on screen, I think.
Can I say, though, too, that's obviously the great thing about Eraserhead, a movie that before I saw it, in my head, I was like, this is the most fucked up thing I'm ever going to see. Like, from this reputation, I'm like, I don't know if I can handle Eraserhead. Like, it's going to be too messed up, or it's going to be too arty or too artily messed up. But like the thing about it is, like, so much of it is also like a comedy of manners, like a weird I don't know, like it's all about awkwardness and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very funny movie
Well,
for
he's
people who have been scared of Eraserhead.
Lynch is very good at taking something and making it scary and weird, and
Yeah.
then taking that same thing and making it funny, and then making it scary. I mean, the baby in that movie, which is so frightening, and there's that one moment where the baby is wearing a suit with a tie, and it's like, well, this looks pretty funny, to be honest.
Yeah, and the pitch meeting for the movie was he's like, and there's a baby, and it's freaky.
Yeah, I think when David Lynch went to pitch the film to prospective producers,
I like that. I mean, he does yell a lot, but your Lynch kind of sounds like half Lynch, half Fred Schneider.
It
Like
does.
David Lynch is,
hell yeah,
it's maybe,
baby.
I want to see
he
my
wants to be the
dinner.
B-52s.
A movie where it's My Dinner with Andre, but it's David Lynch and Fred Schneider, and the whole movie is just waiters asking them to please keep it down. So that's the undead chicken from Eraserhead. Number 2. What a great moment in that movie. What a great moment in Meat movies. It's time for our number 1. Our number 1 greatest performance of Meat on film. The greatest moment of Meat on film.
Can I put out what I think might be
Yes.
number 1? And
Give me your
what
guesses. Give me your guesses. Yeah.
My number 1 Meat on film is, of course, the sequence in the movie Dead Heat where the bad guy uses necromantic energies to animate all of the meat in a Chinese restaurant. So all the ducks that are hanging and the giant side of beef all come to life and attack Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo. It is crazy. It's awesome.
It sounds like a really solid moment. If I'd ever seen that movie, perhaps it would have
You
ended
haven't
up on the
seen it?
list.
You love Joe Piscopo.
I do
You're
love
like,
Joe Piscopo.
He's so funny and muscular, you say.
Yeah, fuscular is what I call it. And
He was the Stuart Wellington of his day.
Yes. Oh, I'm funny.
So Dan, I think you're going to be able to guess what number 1 is. Tell me, you were
I think I may
you were
have-
chomping at the bit earlier. What do you think it's going to be? You're chomping at the meat. What do you think?
I think I may have given you an action figure of number 1. That is my guess. Is it the meat from Rocky?
You got that right. It's the meat, the punching bag beef from the original Rocky, 1976. What a performance. I know we had a whole beef section earlier, but you could not put this moment down in the beef section. It has to be number 1. This is prime, grade A star power on screen. I mean, I think it's the single most iconic meat moment, the crowning cut of meat cinema. He's using the side of beef as a punching bag to show off on TV how he's gonna do against Apollo Creed. And look, as Dan was saying, they made an action figure of this meat. I think it might be the only, as far as I know, the only meat action figure that is not an accessory with something else. You can just buy the meat. And it's because it's a short moment of screen time, the camera is really more on Sly than it is on the meat, but it just sticks in your memory the way that a good piece of beef sticks in your lower GI tract.
You know that shit's got to taste crazy.
That's what I was. That's what I was going to ask you, Elliott.
Yeah.
Do you think it's extra tender? Because
extra tender with all the fucking Sly sweat all over it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
The most delicious sweat.
Yeah, maybe that meat is hanging up in a Planet Hollywood somewhere, and if you pay $1 million, they'll cut a little bit of it off for you. I don't know, but well, I wish I could try it. But that's got to be number 1, the meat, the punching bag beef from Rocky. Guys, do you have any issues with any of the movies on our list? Are there any that we left off that you're really sad you didn't see? Again, I'll go through them again. Number 10, we've got The Meat Monster from John Dies at the End. Number 9, That Truck Full of Pork from Road Games. Number 8, The Dog Factory, Dog Sausages.
I have issues with that.
Number 7, The Rat from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I know Dan has issues with the bedding, the garnish on that. Number 6, The Overcooked Steak from Raging Bull. Number 5, It's a T-Bone Tie, The Floor Beef Steak from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and The Old 96er from The Great Outdoors. Number 4, The Rock and Roll Hamburger from Better Off Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3, That Sinister Evil Barbecue Meat from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 2, The Undead Chicken from Eraserhead. And number 1, The Meat from Rocky. Guys, how do you feel about this list? And is there anything that didn't make it on there that you're disappointed about?
You know, what's surprising to me is, as we joked about my bad memory before, but like the one thing I have a memory for is movies, which causes me kind of a certain amount of like distress in my personal relationships where I'm letting friends, spouses, family down by not knowing stuff that's actually valuable to my life, but knowing all this movie stuff. So it's surprising to me that nothing suggested itself to me as we went through this thing. Like this shows how.
Yeah. Dan and I were, when we went to the movies the other day, I brought up Mulholland Drive, and Dan spoke for like 20 minutes straight about the DVD changes from the theatrical cut.
But not untrue. But I wouldn't say 20 minutes.
It was like 25 minutes.
It
Easy.
did not happen that way.
Half an hour, maybe?
But yeah, like for some reason, meat just doesn't. It sticks in my teeth, but not in my brain.
Interesting. Well, now hopefully this will give you something to chew on, some movies to go back and take a second bite of.
Did you write all these little puns down on a fucking Post-it?
About half of them. Not all of them. But audience, do you have any opinions about it? Be sure to write in. Go to flophousepodcast.com and get in touch with us. Or just write to Dan at his personal email, which is, and I'll tell you right now, Dan.
No, but I mean, if you go to the Flophouse email, it'll go directly to my personal email.
It will go to his personal email.
Yeah, or just hit him up on WhatsApp.
I guess. But also,
Alex, post Dan's WhatsApp on there, please.
This kind of feedback also is the sort of thing that, I don't know, might get addressed in our brand new newsletter, which I'm still promoting if you want to get on the mailing list for our.
Are you going to use the newsletter as an opportunity to refute the claims that Elliott and I make against you?
I mean, I wasn't, but now, like, I feel like an airing of grievances segment would be pretty funny.
You have a column that's just like my side of the story by Dan McCoy.
All picture of you, like, like a knowing look, like.
If you go to flophousepodcast.com, you can plug your email in, get that newsletter.
Go to flophousepodcast.com. You can plug your email in to get the newsletter. You can send us a letter. You can find out about our live stuff that I'm sure we heard about in the ad segment of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's probably a jumble or something you can do on the website, right? Do we have a jumble?
I've got to get on that jumble that you keep asking for.
Got to make that jumble happen. That's all for this episode of The Chop House, a Flophouse mini production. I have been your host, Elliott Kalan, joined, of course, by Dan Frying Pan McCoy and Beef Wellington. Our show is edited and produced by Alex Smith. He goes by the name Howell Doughty online. He's an incredibly talented musician. He has podcasts of his own and music of his own. Please go check out his work. We are a program of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network. If you'd like to become a member of the Max Fun Network, why not? Go to MaximumFun.org/join. While you're there, why not check out the other shows and maybe take a look at the merch section where you'll find some great Flophouse stuff that you can buy. Until then, I'm Elliott Kalan. I'll be seen... What?
Never mind.
Until they go to the website, I guess.
I guess.
We'll be back next week with a full-length episode of The Flophouse where I'll try to talk about meat, but I don't know if I'm really going to get it in. I'm Elliott Kalan.
Elliott has trouble fitting crap into our episodes.
This has been Elliott Kalan with my co-hosts.
Jesus, you said my name before, so I thought it was safe to say.
Well, Stuart could have said, what I liked is that Dan was taking a drink. Stuart, instead of jumping in and saying his name, then waited.
He was like, let's see how this plays out.
Stinker face.
I'm Dan McCoy.
And I'm Beef Wellington. Bye.
And we're saying we'll meet you at the movies.
Well, I guess we are saying that.
Maximum Fun.
A worker-owned network
Of artist-owned shows.
supported
Directly
by you.